November 12th, 1992, I saw my husband and 7 other soldiers off on what was to be just a routine flight out to visit a unit. If it was 17 years, you wanted 18. If it was 3 days, 40. This is kind of what I like to think of as our continued contribution.
She will get everything in the world she can for a survivor.
This life is a godsend.
Oh, honey.
We're linked not through the death of someone we love. You and I are linked through the love of someone we still love.
My husband and I met in 1998 while I was working in the West Wing of the White House for Ronald Reagan, and he was an Army National Guard colonel up in Alaska. We actually met during the rescue of 3 stranded gray whales.
3 gray whales are now trapped in walls of ice 6 inches thick.
Their love story played out in the Universal Studios movie Big Miracle. Tom Carroll, a colonel in the Alaska National Guard.
Nothing's that simple in the Arctic.
Played by Dermot Mulroney.
If I'd known you were this pretty, I would have returned that first phone call of yours right away.
Bonnie Mersinger, played by Vanessa Shaw.
I was in the neighborhood.
Was sent by the president to see how the White House could help with the small town big story.
I think they're getting ready to move.
Hollywood loves a happy ending. With the help of a Soviet icebreaker boarded by Colonel Carroll, no small feat during the Cold War of the 80s, the whales are freed. And the hero gets the girl.
Life was amazing. It was wonderful. I was working for the National Guard at the time, for the Air National Guard. He was the Deputy Commissioner of Military and Veterans Affairs. Our family was doing great. Life was just as good as it could possibly be. On November 12th, 1992, I saw my husband and 7 other soldiers off on what was to be just a routine flight out to visit a unit. 2 hours later, and hundreds of miles away, they went into the mountains in a complete whiteout snowstorm, having mechanical difficulties. For several hours, there was a search underway, and we hoped. The families came together at the headquarters, and we huddled and prayed and hung on to each other.
A Coast Guard helicopter found the wreckage smashed into the side of a mountain, about 30 miles west of Juneau. There were no survivors.
When the word came, the support that we found with each other was tremendous. It was just this immediate bond that our lives would forever be different from that day forward. At a ceremony honoring our husbands, the wives who lost loved ones that fated day came together, and we just spent the entire day finding out that we had lived parallel lives. We had everything in common. We had the same dreams, the same nightmares, the same fears, the same questions, the same pain. And we found in talking with each other, it just helped lift that burden just a little bit.
It was that bond between sudden widows that formed the basis for her life's work. Nearly 20 years later, the TAP's annual national conference hosts more than 2,000 survivors in Washington, D.C.
My husband was killed in Afghanistan. He was killed the day after Memorial Day when a suicide bomber ran into his convoy vehicle. You get that knock on the door, and they tell you your husband is killed. And I couldn't even process that information. I was still an officer's wife, and I still had jobs and duties and obligations to perform for him, and I wanted to represent him well, and I had to take care of my children right away. So it took a few months before I could concentrate on what I was feeling, what I needed to go through. And one thing that TAPS teaches you about grief is you have to go through it. There's no way around it. There's no quick fix.
The Stratton family marks each Memorial Day anniversary of Lieutenant Colonel Mark Stratton's death with their TAPS family.
They were very young when Mark died. They were 2, 5, and 6. What I have learned through their experiences with TAPS is they know that it's okay to talk about Dad. It's okay for them to cry. It's okay for them to come to me and ask any kind of question, either if it's about how he died. We've had a lot of conversations about bad guys and good guys. And then they ask a lot of things about future things.
Okay, now let go. After you've had a little switch. Spray the camera and smile when you do that. Like it?
I like taps because it kind of helps you cope with your feelings and it helps you understand that you're like always there. And to know that it's okay to cry.
Now, I want you to put on your real bad face, all right? Look at me. Like somebody just stole one of your things.
Delaney is just my little sweetie, and I always describe her as my old soul in a 9-year-old's body because she's very mature for her age, and she's just wonderful. She is so sweet because now she starts to look at what I do as a single parent, and she says, you need to take some time for yourself, or I want to make sure that that people treat you right.
Oh, way to go. Ooh, almost hit the camera.
Jake just turned 8 a few months ago. He's our little family clown and is always laughing and talking and everything. But I actually had an incident with Jake about a month and a half ago. His guidance counselor called me and says, Jake's in my office, he's missing Daddy. He saw a picture of Mark that morning. We were going to take a family trip for spring break, and he was feeling that Daddy should be with us, or wish Daddy was here. And that's probably the hardest thing as a parent to handle, because there's going to be lots of milestones in the future when they graduate, when they get married. AJ just turned 5. He will say things like, I remember when Daddy did this. Now, he was 2 when Mark was killed, so he doesn't remember, but the stories that we have told him have become his memories.
Nearly 500 young survivors are at this year's camp, where they learn about grief, how to cry, and how to be happy again. Some things they're taught by experts, many things they learn from each other.
Some of these kids have been here for years, and so they remember what it was like being at the Good Grief Camp for the first year. And so they are very, very comforting to the other kids too, who may have been the first year. Some of these kids have never talked about the loss. Some of them keep telling friends that don't understand that their dad's deployed, or that they don't have a dad, or that he even left. So being in a like group with other kids, first of all, that have lost a loved one and then lost a loved one in the military is huge.
My special person was Todd Weaver. He was my uncle. He died on September 9th, 2010. I met him last year.
Yeah. And how'd you guys meet? In one of these camps?
Me and him were almost the only boy. There were about 2 or 3 others. And so we just sort of became friends.
Yeah.
I'll never forget the day I learned my dad had died. I wrote that I would like to meet him and know what he was like, because I never really knew what he was like, because he died when I was 2 months old.
It's our journey book. We have to draw the picture of our special person, my dad. He passed away by a roadside bomb. But sometimes, if I start talking about my dad, what happened to him, sometimes I'll start getting teary-eyed.
Kids are great. The amazing stories you get to hear from some of these kids and the stuff they've been through and the strength and courage they have, it's amazing. It's very humbling, honoring, and it gives you a sense of service of actually what you're doing. It kind of brings it back to reality.
We have now trained over 1,000 peer mentors to be there to comfort those who are newly bereaved. The secret of making that connection is finding those who have had a similar loss. And now that we have so many wonderful peer mentors, we can match folks right down to, this was their only son, he was killed in combat, maybe he grew up as a baseball player, and we'll find a similar mom.
Every single person in this room has been where you are now. Every one of us who wears a red shirt has been where you are now.
Adult mentors learn less about what to say and more about how to listen.
My mentees both have children, roughly the same age as my children. One of her husband was also Air Force, so they try and match similar experiences or the ways of the death. And just kind of another level of support.
You're in your fog of grief, and you've got people saying, this is your best, this is for your best interest.
Dozens of workshops at the National Seminar offer information on everything from benefits
and there are also tax implications
to how to handle some well-meaning but awkward responses to a loved one's death.
I was told, well, at least you had him for 17 years.
Kind of the flip side of it. And you know what, at least if it was 17 years, you wanted 18. If it was 3 days, 40, forever. We wanted forever.
A family formed through sometimes unlikely bonds, held fast by common tragedy.
We're linked not through the death of someone we love. You and I are linked through the love of someone we still love.
The theme of our weekend is remember the love, celebrate the life, and share the journey. It's not just about the fact that our loved ones died. It's about the fact that they lived an extraordinary life, a life that was filled with selfless service.
I asked her how he had died. And she told me that he had shot himself in the head and that he was gone.
Marine Major Jeff Hackett, an explosives ordnance disposal expert, had left the Corps after losing 8 of his men in combat. Some were like sons to him.
And that just weighed so heavy on him because he told me he was a failure because he didn't keep his word to the wives of those killed.
Hackett had trouble finding work in the small town, and there were money troubles. In June of 2010, he drove to the American Legion Hall in Cheyenne and shot himself.
We buried him on Saturday, and on Tuesday I was given a pamphlet with all the signs of PTSD, and he had all but 3. And I just wish I would have known, because maybe I could have saved him.
Of the thousands of cases TAPS handles, 12%, or 3,000 of them, are suicides.
We're seeing actually an increase in losses by suicide.
Marine Corps Major John Ruocco made it home safely after flying dozens of combat missions in Iraq. His wife, a trained social worker, recognized the signs and even asked her husband if he was going to kill himself. He said he would never do that to her and their boys. 2 hours later, he hung himself.
Kim has turned that pain around and is now there to help thousands of other survivors.
For suicide survivors, it's a whole complicated process of going through the many layers of feelings that you have when someone dies by suicide. You know, you love them, you admire them. At one time, they were your hero, and now what do you do with that death?
Attendance at retreats tailored for military suicide survivors tripled in 3 years.
It's been an incredible support system because people walk in and they don't have to be ashamed, and they don't have to worry about people judging what happened with their loss. They can come and talk about their life and their love and their memories instead of trying to defend how they died.
Carroll co-chaired the Department of Defense's 2010 Task Force on Suicide Prevention, which hosted families of those who'd taken their own lives.
And the day before Brian was to return to Iraq, he took his life at my home while I was sleeping.
And some who'd survived their own attempts.
I thought suicide was terminal, thought my situation was terminal, I thought I was terminal. I was wrong.
People die by suicide when they've reached a point of hopelessness and helplessness. It's complicated by traumatic brain injury, by post-traumatic stress, by other factors in their lives. And for our survivors, you know, they really are facing a very difficult road of trying to figure out the why that they may never know.
A widow at 24.
At one suicide survivors retreat, spouses, parents, and children were able to release some of their grief in an art therapy workshop.
But like this represents infantry blue, Army infantry. My husband was Army infantry. And then like the Army boot, the American flag. And he was a proud soldier. And I'm gonna put some black in there because that's how I feel right about now.
Well, I had a nice, solid life. And when my son committed suicide, it just sort of turned upside down and broke and got black and white instead of being colorful. I used to read the funny papers before he died. I haven't read them since.
No.
I don't really find much funny in life anymore.
When you look back and you see, oh geez, I remember being there. Maybe I have healed a little bit, you know? Or look at her, boy, that's where I want to get to, where I can actually get up and talk about it without, you know, breaking down. You know, they can see all different stages and know that they too can heal from it.
We're gonna take you up 2.5 miles above Homestead, Florida, throw you out of our airplane, bring you screaming back down at 120 miles per hour, and land you safe and soft on the drop zone. You ready to go?
I'm ready, I can't
All
wait.
right, have a good jump.
Like here we feel normal.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not the only one. I don't have to make anybody else feel better when they ask me what is up with my, you know, if they ask me if I'm married or, usually my response is, okay, once I tell you, I don't want you to feel bad for me.
Wives of fallen service members find refuge at a retreat in Key Largo, Florida.
We've all had to grow. Like I say, when Gil died, I was full up. Like he gave me everything I needed. But the minute that he wasn't here anymore, all of a sudden there were these parts of me that weren't there anymore. All these empty spaces.
Emily Munoz's husband was a captain with the 7th Special Forces Group. Shortly after he returned from Iraq, he was hospitalized with flu-like symptoms. 2 days later, he died.
I think we were talking the other day about how much TAPS does that it helps us. It fills some of the spaces, but it also like teaches us to help do it on our own.
We started doing the regional survivor seminars back in 2005 and getting people together just in that way. But it was really focused on, you know, talking about the grief, learning coping strategies, processing our loss. And, you know, we started recognizing, wow, there is a need to just get together and bond in a different way. Can they see us? Ah!
Hi! Oh yeah, that's Donna and somebody.
You know what it is? It's kind of a metaphor for seeing the world in a whole different way.
And also, you know, I remember flying a kite one time and thinking, you know, just because I can't see it when it disappears, I can still feel it. I think Tom knew that you would have done something huge.
Oh, it's just having someone to talk to that understands what you mean. I mean, you know, like Bonnie, I mean, look at this lady's a godsend.
Oh, honey.
You know, the things she's done for everybody, you know? It's like some of my friends here, I just met them 3 days ago, and I feel like I met one of them on the plane, and we instantly, you know, I met a bunch of them on Facebook when we were getting ready to come, and we were already friends talking on the phone and sharing stories. It's just really how I just think now maybe I can go home and function. Maybe might even go back to work, you know. Yeah. Wouldn't hurt. Now I found out I can get out of the house and I can function and not cry.
To get up, you know, and to say, you know, I'm Jen and I lost my husband to suicide, nobody treated me any differently.
You know, TAPS is about the love and, you know, really giving all those that service member loved and left behind a safe place to grieve and to find hope and to find healing and find support. So, you know, we're just there for each other.
There's a time when you think, is anyone going to remember that you ever lived? Because the world does go on. But then when you get to support, peer support, you get to keep telling a story.
Yeah.
I get to keep saying Mike's name, and no one looks at me funny. No one goes, why are you still talking about him? Why haven't you remarried or moved on?
Creating new memories eventually softens the loss.
Yeah, so we can get together, have fun, talk over dinner, talk just sitting around by the beach, go out, build new memories, you know, process things that have happened, overcome fears.
A little nervous.
I was really emotional this morning about it, and then I did pretty good, but that's the first I've been back to the drop zone.
Terry Starlipper has tandem jumped out of airplanes before, strapped in with Chris Schaefer, her husband.
Chris was a military free fall instructor in Yuma, Proving Grounds. He was Air Force.
He was working as the jump master on a night operation when a student collided with him. The master sergeant landed on the mark, but died on impact. That was just 5 weeks after their wedding.
Once he was killed, I just said, you know, I'm not going to jump. A lot of the guys that worked with him said, hey, you know, if you want to go up, I'll take you up. And no, I'm just going to do that with him. I'm not going to do it with anybody else. So when this opportunity came up, I said, you know, it's been almost 12 years, and why not? I think it'll be very healing, and I think it's time to just do it. It felt good to let it go. And I think he would have been proud too. And the guys certainly made it very special and made me feel very important and special, and that made it that much better.
Kyle Harper's fiancé, Staff Sergeant Mike Hollander, was killed by an IED in Iraq in April of 2007. That June, she went to a TAPS meeting, but left early.
Funny enough, a few days later, or maybe a few weeks later, I don't remember, it's kind of a blur, I got a call from this lady. And she was like, hi, Kyle, it's Bonnie. I was like, I'm not sure who you are, but okay.
Now, Kyle works for TAPS and puts together retreats like this one, coming up with creative ways to help survivors let go.
For 5 minutes, like someone else is totally and completely in control, and like you don't have a care in the world, that there's nothing you can do just but sit there and enjoy like that moment. Just look forward to that feeling because it's so much fun and it's just so freeing.
Wow.
That's nice.
That's perfect.
It is, it really is.
You ready to be free tomorrow? For
yeah, that's great.
My name is Staff Sergeant Noah Watts, and I'm glad you guys are here. It's an honor for us to be able to jump with you guys today. First things first, we have here our parachute. Some of you guys definitely had your loved ones and everything. Hopefully this allows you guys to get a little bit of an idea of what they might have done or things like that. Are we ready to skydive? Yes, sir. All right, remember when you're asked, are you ready to skydive? Remember, no sounds a whole lot like go. Let's go.
My hero is my husband. I mean, he inspires me every day. He was an extraordinary leader in this Army, so that's what inspires me, to do good things, to do bigger things.
I loved every moment of it. It was incredible. You know, my husband was airborne, and to do this and feel what he felt is an incredible feeling. I'm so grateful to the Golden Knights. Awesome. Oh, yay! It was just amazing.
I got emotional. I did. It's like they pulled the canopy, and all of a sudden I got it. Like what they must feel like. It's like the peace they must have felt, like the pressure of the world off and just peace, and I got it, and I just felt like he's okay. I know he's okay. He's okay. I just know it. So blue skies, girl. Blue skies.
We have a really special closing ceremony tonight, and we're going to ask Emily to start off by reading some of the wonderful words that were written for each of you.
Terry, I think your husband loves your amazing combination of sweetness and toughness. Vicky, you have an inviting and protective personality, a quality that so many of us greatly admire. Donna, your husband saw in you so much joy and love and excitement about life. He lives on in you.
Yep, thank you.
I think Tom also loved you for your courage and strength. Who else but you could create such an amazing organization to honor our men and support so many families? We love you like Tom. I don't know if you guys have seen Big Miracle, but at the end of the movie, you know, when the little kid comes on and he says the hole in the ice let the whole world through, that was when I realized the hole in Bonnie's heart let all of us in.
Falling out of an airplane and falling back into life. For it is my hope that each one of us finds a new dream to live and to grow and to become the women that we are meant to be. To our men.